Mexican survivor of Seoul's Halloween crush feared dying in Itaewon. Juliana Velandia Santaella snapped a photo of young women dressed as bananas, a hot dog and fries on the streets of Itaewon at 10:08 p.m. Saturday night. Then she decided to go home, walking down a narrow alley where she would narrowly escape her death. The 23-year-old Mexican medical student began to feel pressured by the packed crowd, which was slowly pushing hundreds into an alleyway that became the center of a crash that left at least 153 people dead. Velandia was quickly separated from her friend, Carolina Cano, 21, from Mexico, and began to feel the weight of other people's bodies crushing her. At one point, "My feet weren't even touching the ground anymore," she said. "There was an unconscious guy on top of me, which was affecting my breathing." Velandia focused on shallow breaths through her mouth as her lungs began to feel flattened. "People around her were screaming for help or calling for the police," she said, but they gradually died down as their bodies went limp above and below her. Stuck in a pile of people, she remembers being able to move her neck freely while the rest of her body was restrained. "I was like, okay, I'm going to be next. I really thought I was going to die," she said. "I was completely paralyzed. At one point, I couldn't feel my legs anymore. I couldn't even move my toes." She was left like that, unable to feel parts of her body, until a young South Korean man who was standing on a raised ledge grabbed her arms and pulled her out of the crowd. She said she was then able to look at her phone and saw that it was 10:57 p.m. After a few minutes, she began to regain sensation in her legs. "At first, there were so many unconscious bodies on the floor that I couldn't even walk," she said. Velandia's many injuries show what could happen in a dangerous crowd crush. On Sunday, she quickly developed a fever and spent 4 hours in the emergency room of St. Mary's Hospital at Catholic University of Korea, where she was diagnosed with rhabdomyolysis, a life-threatening condition that involves muscle damage and a necrosis when cells begin to grow. Die. Speaking from her dorm on Monday, she said the pain had gotten worse. "One leg is swollen and purple, and she is unable to place her entire foot on the ground while walking. Even now, her chest hurts if she breathes too deeply." Keith Still, a crowd safety expert and visiting professor of crowd science at the University of Suffolk in Britain, told the Post that compressive or restrictive asphyxia is the likely cause of most people killed in a crush of crowds. "It takes about 6 minutes for people to get into this condition if their lungs don't have room to expand. People don't die because they panicked," he said. "They are panicking because they are dying. So what happens is when bodies fall, when people fall on top of each other, people have a hard time getting up and you end up with arms and legs twisting together." According to Velandia, many people were trying to move bodies to more open ground to perform CPR as she escaped from the crowd. Some people who appeared lifeless had vomited in their mouths and around them, suggesting they had choked to death, she said. She tracked down her friend, Kano, who had borrowed a stranger's cell phone to call her. The two met outside Itaewon Station, the place where so many revelers had started their Halloween night. "We hugged and we cried a lot when we saw each other, because we really thought the other was dead," Velandia said. "It's a miracle we're alive, really."